Hello, everyone. I'm Shalika De Silva. On behalf of Samadhi Buddhist Foundation, I would like to welcome all of you to our month of November Clarity of Mind through Mindfulness session. Um, Actually, today is a special day for our program. Um, I started actually to host this program 2 years ago on a day like this. And to give you a little background, this program was established actually to give like our teenagers and young adults a spiritual booster to cope up with the stress and anxiety caused by the pandemic. Actually, we were very successful, and Bhante Chandarathana accepted my invitation to host another mindfulness practice session apart from our regular Dhamma talk. After the pandemic, when our group went back to school and colleges in person, we converted this program to an adult program where Bhante began to go into more depth in Dhamma. That is what actually you have been experiencing so far. So on behalf of Samadhi Buddhist Foundation, I want to thank and appreciate Venerable Chandarathana Thero's commitment and dedication to this program. Throughout actually these 2 years, he never canceled a single session. So it shows that his commitment and dedication to guide us, to put us on the right path. On our birthday, we are going to do a slight change to our direction to our program. So I like to invite Most Venerable Chandarathana Thero to let you know what is his new approach would be. Teruvan Sarnai Bhante.
Yeah, Teruvan Sarnai Shalika. Actually, today I am also joining with at a new place.
Uh-huh.
Nissanone was given one area closer to down south. It is actually in Imaduwa. So
Uh-huh.
I am remaining there right now, staying there, and while being there, I am going to conduct today's program. And it's a very interesting place because it's again there's a hill, and the monastery is located at the hilltop, and down where the devotees are coming and offering dana. So those are being done. So if any one of you are interested, you are welcome to visit Imaduwa Dhamma Vijay Monastery. Several monks from Nisarnavane are residing here. And today Bhante Dhammaji also supposed to visit here because there is a kuti offering puja going to happen at Imaduva Monastery. So he is most probably will be visiting us during the afternoon. And as Shalika pointed out, actually we hope to start a new series because we went through all the paramis, actually the perfections we have fulfilled. So we all fulfilled perfections. So actually now we are going to discuss something related to the meditation particularly. I found Venerable Ayakema. She was one of the German nuns staying at Sri Lanka, and she actually is a very good writer. Probably you are familiar with her books, Being Nobody, Going Nowhere, Being Not Self. So likewise, there are very visible here and now. So likewise, there are very interesting books written by Ayakema. So I thought of starting a new series based on her books, and because she explains Dhamma very lucidly and again very clearly, and I mean her books are very inspiring. So if probably you might have read at least one of them by now, and if not, I encourage you to read them because those are really interesting and really encouraging. And today I thought of taking a topic which is starting with the beginning of our practice. So this is how we are going to start in the sense, now typically a person simply leads a sensual life, thinking this and that, and basically going through various sensual gratifications, and to some at one point actually he may turn his life into a meditative life. That is what we are going to discuss today, how one is successfully changing one's life into a meditative life. So it is not simply that you are doing meditation as a kind of a hobby or sort of just something to spend your time. Rather, you are changing the entire life. So it's a kind of an event, kind of a step that you are taking into your spiritual side. Therefore, we can start thinking something differently and not the usual way what we are usually doing. So probably this helps us to understand that our lives require some kind of a spiritual aspect, because sometimes we are being carried away by the waves of life, what others are doing, and various economic waves, and the sensual desire based waves, and various waves are available in the society, and we being carried away by them. And at one point probably we decide, okay, I better think about myself, better look at myself, what is really going on inside myself, what is this mind. So likewise there are various ways that we start thinking about ourselves, and therefore we start a different way of life. That is what we are sometimes trying to remind here. It's a kind of an introspective life. So typically our minds are fairly reaching outside, and therefore we end up with various questions. But here actually we are trying to turn our attention to inside. So that is why it is a very introspective, looking inside type of life. And again, we have to have a lot of patience to do it, because we may be expecting a lot of things, maybe miracles and it's this and that, but it is not something like that. It's a very innocent type of endeavor, and you are doing it honestly. And again, you are welcome to do it, and you yourself have to do it. No one else can do it for you. Basically, there are maybe various external tasks that others can do it for you. So, for example, if your garden has to be cleaned, you can ask someone else to do, and you can pay the labor. But such thing can't be done in your this meditation related thing, where you yourself have to get involved. And we need to recognize what are the things actually helping our meditative life. So that is also something important, because if we are simply not considerate about those things, again and again we getting distracted. So therefore, so actually how we start is kind of a very simple way. All the tasks that we have to do in our meditative life starts very simply. So the task, say for example, is simply watching your breath, or simply walking mindfully and being your attention at the footstep, at the sensation, at the contact. And maybe you are simply paying attention again and again to the posture. So likewise, the task in your hand is extremely simple, but it's very difficult to perform. So that is very interesting point. Even though the task is very simple, but it's very difficult to perform. So we will discuss these points in this session. So since our minds are fairly attuned towards very complex activities, it basically doesn't feel encouraged or feel enthusiastic in doing very simple things. Say for example, if I simply ask you to watch your breath, so the mind is not interested because it's a very boring task. It is not interested. And again, it is not something fascinating, it is not something exciting. So the breath is something very very neutral, and again that is something we are very familiar with from our birth. So we are breathing. So therefore people may ask, what's the point? So so we have that kind of an attitude towards watching breath and watching our steps, watching the posture. So we basically have kind of a negative attitude. But here we need to understand that even though our minds are attracted to various kinds of complex activities, they don't really give us happiness. We think that they may give us a lot of happiness, they may give us a lot of satisfaction. But if you think carefully, so ultimately you are being driven by various sensual desires, and mind get involved, mind get entangled, and ultimately you get frustrated. Ultimately you get really worried. and various regrets are there, various say heartbreaks are there, disappointments are there, so various things are there, but unfortunately mind still likes to think about them again and again. So that is a kind of a bad habit we all have. So as human beings we are being driven by those bad habits. So we need to honestly recognize these bad habits. So as a remedy to these bad habits, actually we are trying to encourage these kind of mindful practices. And if you consider our uh, way of life or the way of the mind, it typically either in the past or in the future. So never, not very much in the present, because there are various incidents happen in the past. Those are very exciting, those are maybe heartbreaking, maybe involve a lot of worries. Unfortunately mind likes to think about them. And similarly there are various uncertainties in the future, and we again have various plans, various hopes. Again mind likes to get involved with them. But being in the present, being with the breath, being with our steps, being with the posture, so those are something the mind does not like interested. So as a result of that we again and again get distracted whenever we are trying to observe those kind of present moment phenomena. So there's a kind of a realistic situation that we need to understand, that we all have to face this. Say when, if you are starting your meditative life, if you start something like this what we are explaining, and it is not surprise that your mind get distracted, because that's the nature of the mind, because it is not interested, it doesn't find enjoying what is experiencing. So again and again it is being distracted to something else. So our duty at this point is to again and again bring our attention back to the breath. Again and again bring our attention back to the posture. Again and again bring our attention back to the step. Whatever the thing that you are doing currently, so you need to bring your attention again and again. So this is something actually quite cumbersome, little tiring, because mind doesn't show any kind of calmness, mind doesn't show any kind of say progress. It's a very very slow progress. So at the beginning therefore it is quite discouraging, and you might even think of it's not going to work. You might even think that you may have to give it up, you can never be successful. So that's a kind of a negative attitude probably we may have at the beginning. But without giving up, even though the progress is quite slow, even though there is no joy at the beginning, so we need to little encourage ourselves to do it, to continue it. So again and again bringing our attention back to the whatever the mindful object is not only encouraging the mindfulness practice or in the meditation. Actually it is being well recognized even by the say great thinkers. I can remember in one of Dr. Richard Davidson's lectures, he was telling that one of the previous, I think William Blake or someone, who was one of the great thinkers in the Western psychology. So he is telling, in the one important thing in the education is to get this distracted mind again and again to the object. So therefore, it is being recognized even in the Western psychology, not only in the Buddhism, not only in the meditation, but even in Western psychology. Now they are recognizing what are the kind of changes even happening in your brain when you are doing this kind of a task. So it's a significant growth to the positive side is happening even in your brain. So when you are doing this kind of an activity, but the process is utterly difficult at the beginning, so that we need to understand. So we need to understand, okay, I'm going to do a difficult task. Even though the task at hand is extremely simple, doing it is extremely difficult. So that is something that we need to honestly understand. And that is why again and again we need to do it. It's not something that we are doing today and then maybe after 1 week, after 1 month you are doing. Rather, you need to make it as a habit. In the morning you have to do it, in the evening you have to do it, if possible during your lunch hour, lunchtime you have to do it. So likewise, slowly we need to absorb these tasks to our life. Then only it becomes a meditative life. And certain inner qualities are required in this process, because if we consider our mind as a kind of a garden, so it has a lot of weeds. So the weeds in our mind is actually typically we recognize as raga, dosa, moha, or greed, hatred, and delusion. So they are the roots actually. From those three roots, actually, there are various kinds of weeds are being generated. So how are we going to remove them? Because now you can understand, if your garden is fully covered with weeds, so then there is no point. It's completely kind of not a nice garden. So you need to maintain it, you need to weed it. So likewise you need to maintain it. So similarly here in our mind's garden, we need to recognize what are the weeds. So particularly there are three main roots recognized. So they are called greed, hatred, and delusion. And instead of greed, we have to cultivate non-greed. Instead of hatred, we need to cultivate non-hatred. Instead of delusion, we need to cultivate non-delusion. So this very much is the task in our hand. But actually at the beginning, we can't recognize how this is happening, because sometimes we are trying to rationally or logically trying to understand how whatever the task we are doing, how it is going to ultimately help to develop this process, achieve this goal. But at the beginning it is very difficult to understand, because it's very much like a very basic exercise that we are doing at the beginning. You can't immediately relate it, that particular little exercise, with this ultimate goal. But later, slowly, you may understand that this kind of an exercise, this kind of a training is taking you slowly to the necessary goal. So, therefore, there are certain things actually we need to have. In one thing is in that respect is the faith. You need to have a lot of faith. Okay, this is something going to work, even though I can't see it's really right now. It is working. This is definitely going to work. So that sort of a belief, that sort of a faith, that sort of a trust you need to have. And again, uh, your mind has to be present. You have to again and again bring your attention back to the present. And we need to maintain kind of an open attitude. Whatever happens, I am ready to accept. I'm not going to have kind of a superb conditions. I'm not going to have perfect conditions. But right now, whatever thing is going to happen, I'm ready to accept. So this kind of attitude is quite important, because sometimes we as meditators, sometimes we expect a very, say, extremely silent place, an extremely conducive environment. And that may be good if we are having it, but it is not always possible. We can't ask everyone to be silent for our meditation. We can't stop all the vehicles running in the road. So likewise there are various obvious difficulties which we need to little endure. We need to bear these things, and again ultimately they becomes our teachers. At the beginning, even though they appear like difficulties, obstacles, but in the long run, particularly when we are dealing with vipassana, so all these different distractions becomes our teacher. So therefore at the beginning we need to little be patient about these situations. No need to get angry, no need to get frustrated, no need to hate those people or whoever the conditions. Rather we need to little accepting. So having that accepting attitude in the mind is extremely important. Otherwise, I mean, again and again we become little angry about the situation, angry about various people. Then actually the meditation become a really another activity where we are finding fault with others, where we are getting angry with others. So it's not going to work. So therefore we need to understand, okay, this world is not perfect, this situation is not perfect, environment is not perfect, everything is not perfect. So let me just endure it for the time being till I become mature to handle it. So later I'm going to address it, later I'm going to handle it. At the moment, I'm just surrendering. At the moment, I'm just accepting the situation. So something, that kind of an attitude is quite helpful. Then you are not really bothering about external conditions. It's good. I mean, if we are having a very silent environment for our meditation, it is pretty good. If not, still we are capable of handling it. Anyway, when you are preparing the environment, we need to have it very clean. And again, you yourself have to have a very clean body. Say you are having a bath, and maybe wash yourself and dress yourself properly with clean suit. So those kind of things really matter sometimes, because if the smell around surrounding is not good, and your health is not really good. So these little things also sometimes matter. So therefore, having such kind of conducive environment, internal and external, is quite important. And restrainment of the faculties, that's a very important thing, because even though we may be trying hard in meditation, if we are not restraining our faculties, then it's very difficult to achieve something. We know that the mind is constantly being distracted to various things, and during our meditation, actually what we are doing is kind of a process, again and again bringing our attention to something important or something necessary, but mind get distracted. So these distractions have a significant influence based on our everyday life, how we behave, how we used our faculties. Through our eyes we can see various sights. Through our ears, we can listen various sounds. Through the nose, we can smell various odors. Through the tongue, we can taste various delicacies, various tastes. And through our bodies, we can experience various contacts. And again, through the mind, we can understand various mental objects. So, how are we going to restrain them? So that is also something important, because if we are careless, if we are reckless in our usage of these faculties, then the information, the data that we are taking inside is very harmful. Because at the beginning, they start accumulating in our mind. Actually, what we see through our eyes may not remain in our eyes, but it may make a significant influence to our mind. And what we hear through our ears may not remain in our ears, but what we hear actually make a significant influence, kind of an impact to our mind. So likewise, all the other faculties also have a significant influence, impact towards the mind. So if we are trying to purify the mind, if we are trying to say progress the mind, develop the mind, then definitely we need to understand what are the sort of counterproductive things, what are the influential other external factors, how are we going to maintain ourselves so that whatever we undertake not going to again and again wasted out. So therefore, these kind of things we need to have little understanding, because if we are not really recognizing these things, then ultimately, even though we may be doing meditation, but there are certain many occasions that again and again whatever we acquired, or whatever the skill that we developed, slowly fading away. That we need to understand. And again, when we are undertaking this task, we have to do it wholeheartedly, because sometimes people have a lot of doubts. And doubt is not just because they have kind of a perplexity or whether it's going to work or something. Rather, they have the doubt about the task itself. Maybe they have a doubt about the method itself, maybe a doubt about the teacher. Then it is very difficult. So at the beginning, therefore, we need to have a lot of trust in the teacher. We need to have a lot of trust about the method, and then only we put ourselves wholeheartedly, 100%. And if we are doing it half-heartedly, then actually the practice may not lead to the desired goal. It may end up with having various, say, misunderstandings, wrong views. You may even sort of find fault with someone else, and you may come to a wrong conclusion. So those kinds of misunderstandings are quite possible if you are doing it half-heartedly. But if you are meditating, you need to do it wholeheartedly. You are doing it honestly. You are putting the 100%, something like that. And actually, the Dhamma has a quality which is called Ehi Passiko. It is very much like a kind of an invitation coming from the Dhamma. Come and see. Put me into practice and see. So that's kind of an invitation coming from the Dhamma. It is not actually the Buddha asking us to do, rather the Dhamma itself has the quality Ehi Passiko. Come and see. Put me into practice and see whether it is giving the desired results. So very interesting kind of a attitude that Buddha is trying to develop within us. So Dhamma is something right now may not be cultivated within ourselves, but we need to cultivate within ourselves. We need to encourage that. We need to cultivate us within our hearts. Then only we may be in a position to verify it, whether it is going to work it or not. And regarding this, actually, there are four things actually I like to highlight here. So having faith is one important thing I already little discussed. And again, having a little curiosity. Is it going to, how it is going to work out? So is it going to really work out for me? So what are these different, say, meditative jhanas, or what are these path and fruition? What are these vipassana knowledges? So you are having kind of a curiosity. So that is also something really encouraging you to practice, because you listen, or you hear that people are talking about this and books are written about them. Still you don't have them, and now you need to verify. So this verification based on the curiosity, and you have a little curiosity to test it. I need to test it by myself. I'm not going to immediately believe, rather I am going to test it. That kind of an attitude also good. Either you are completely believing, completely you have faith, and therefore you are doing it, or you have a different attitude. Okay, I'm going to test it, I'm going to verify it. But in order to verify, you need to practice. You can't simply verify simply you based on the external data, simply using someone else's data. Rather, you yourself have to practice, then only you can verify. So that's why, I mean, these little things actually encouraging the practice, not simple superficial observation. Rather, either the curiosity, either the faith you have, all are taking you towards the practice. And the other thing is effort, because as I mentioned at the beginning, the results are pretty slow and it may be difficult and you may have a lot of obstacles. So therefore you need to have a lot of effort. So kind of an effort telling you, okay, even though a lot of difficulties are there, even though different obstacles are there, I'm not going to give up. Somehow I'm going to do it. So that kind of a relentless effort is something very, very important. And some people are with that kind of a character. So they want to do it even though there are a lot of obstacles. So that kind of effort is quite important at the beginning particularly. And again, the determination. So you are having kind of a mental determination. Okay, I'm determined to do it. So not really the effort also you can combine. And sometimes actually you can see, I mean, these different attitudes you have are helping each other. When you have faith, probably you can have a determination. And when you have faith, you are putting enough effort to continue it. And again, as you are continuing, you probably have a little curiosity. Okay, now something is good, something I have experienced. How about the next part? So likewise, little curiosity is kind of another encouraging factor, a kind of a motivating factor. I mean, these things are little interesting, important at the beginning, but later, as we are getting more and more matured in the practice, I mean, these things have a different kind of an evolution, but you don't need to worry about them immediately at the beginning. Rather, you need kind of a motivation at the beginning. Yeah, as a person, now I'm going to lead a kind of a spiritual life. I'm going to start it. Okay, let me start it, let me continue it. So that kind of an encouragement is required at the beginning. And when you are developing it, now say you are now practicing daily, say you are practicing walking, mindful walking. So now assume that you are able to maintain fair amount of mindfulness. Say 10 steps you can maintain mindfulness, 20 steps you can be mindful, 30 steps you can be mindful. So slowly you can recognize kind of a growth happening, kind of a progress happening. Similarly, suppose you are practicing mindful breathing. At the beginning you only could be mindful for 5 breaths. Now you can be mindful about 15 breaths. Now you can be mindful about 30 breaths. Now you can be mindful about 50 breaths. So likewise, you yourself can understand how the progress is happening. And later you can even spread it to other activities. Say for example, while brushing your teeth you can be mindful, and while washing your clothes you can be mindful, and while having a bath you can be mindful, while eating, while drinking, while taking the say wearing your clothes. So all these different activities you can do mindfully. Now actually this is another side of clear comprehension Buddha mentioned. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, so this mindfulness practice have to be spread out now. It's not merely you are doing it on your cushion or on your walking path. Rather you need to spread it out now. Now you are slowly expanding it. So you are recognizing what are the activities I am continuing during my daily activities, what I am continuously doing. Why can't I continue them with mindfulness? Why can't I do them with mindfulness? Now you need to explore these activities, and you need to understand how I am inserting mindfulness into the picture. You can't stop everything and do meditation whole day. Instead, what you need to do is to understand how you are going to inculcate mindfulness into various daily activities. Say, for example, brushing the teeth. So, when you are brushing your teeth, so you can do it mindfully. Yeah, you are alone doing it, you can do it mindfully. Similarly, when you are having your meal, still you can do it mindfully. So, likewise, you can actually challenge. So, why can't I do it mindfully? So, likewise, now you are expanding mindfulness. And later, now actually we can come to another dimension of clear comprehension. That is, before you do any particular task, you do a little bit of a reflection. What is the purpose of doing it? Is it really going to be useful? Is it useful to me? Is it useful to another person? Is it beneficial? Is it harmful? So likewise, a little verification before you undertake a task. And then am I going to use the all available skillful means to do it? Or am I doing it properly, using the proper methods? Am I using the necessary tools, proper methods, or am I simply carelessly doing it? So the way of doing it is again another thing that we can think of. And again, while doing it, how you are incorporating the Satipatthana into it, or the four foundations of mindfulness into it. Are you, while engaged with that particular task, are you being mindful about the bodily activities? Are we mindful about various feelings that is arising? Or are we simply watching the mind states? So likewise, now it is not simply undertaking the task. Again, we are recognizing how we are incorporating mindfulness practice into the task. And the last thing is doing it with wisdom. So without simply being carried away by the task, okay, you are maintaining kind of a balance and have a little understanding that there are certain conceptual things, conceptual activities available, but underneath there are very significant kind of spiritual activities or non-conceptual activities, realistic activities are also available. So that kind of a little inclination towards the wisdom side. So this kind of a checking actually prevents various mistakes. So if we are doing like this, then it is not merely mindfulness. Now you are coupling clear comprehension into the picture. So mindfulness is now coupled with clear comprehension. Then it becomes sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension. And actually that has been encouraged by the Buddha. If you remember, when he is talking about say mindful breathing, so at the beginning simply he mentioned sato vasa sati, sato passa sati, just mindfully breathe out, mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out, that's it. So that also we need to familiarize, that we need to cultivate, and later we become successful in it. Now we can mindfully breathe in, mindfully breathe out. But Buddha didn't stop there. He asks us to recognize various subtle aspects of breathing. Whether the in breath is longer, out breath is longer, in breath is shorter, out breath is shorter. Whether we are in the beginning of the in breath, middle of the in breath, end of the in breath. So this is how. So he is helping us to insert this clear comprehension into the picture. Even in the walking meditation, say at the beginning you are simply assume that you are doing left right, something like that, very very simple activity, so that your mind avoid any distraction. Rather you are able to maintain your attention simply in the walking. Suppose now you are successful in it. So I mean, this alone may give you a lot of satisfaction, lot of say lighter mind, clear mind. But that is not enough. Now you need to incorporate clear comprehension into the picture. Now you need to purposely recognize what are the other subtle activities available, what are the other aspects available. Not merely being mindful, rather you need to clearly recognize what else is available. What are the subtle aspects further available in this situation, in this incident. So likewise, we need to little encourage our mind at the beginning. Otherwise, mind may simply do it in a kind of a habitual manner, simply being mindful in the present moment. That's it. And you've been satisfied with that. So that is not the end actually. So Buddha actually incorporate clear comprehension into the picture. So that is actually, we can say, the seed of wisdom. So the mindfulness may develop fair amount of concentration, and ultimately what we target is develop wisdom. So the clear comprehension is actually the seed of wisdom. So later it may grow to a huge tree of wisdom, but at the beginning we need to initiate it. It itself may not initiate, but by understanding Buddha's teaching, we need to give a little push, little initiation to start it. And when we are doing it, now we need to little align our practice. So how we are sort of being moral, what are the ethics involved. So these things also now slowly matter. As you develop mindfulness and clear comprehension, you get a lot of reminders, like, so mindfulness will start monitoring you, telling you, okay, this particular task is not good for you, this is not beneficial to you, this may be harmful to you, or this may be even harmful to another person, so just give it up. So likewise, it's a kind of a monitoring process now we are developing. Now you need to encourage that. Rather than you feel little burdened by that, now you need to understand, okay, there's a kind of a internal teacher is working within me, kind of a monitoring process is now developing within me. I need to accept it. I have to sort of ready to understand it. I have to ready to sort of be advised. So the mindfulness in that aspect become kind of a monitoring process, helping us to further become more righteous, incline more towards the wholesome side. We may be having a lot of bad habits, we may be continuing some mishaps. So those are now being recognized by mindfulness and will be indicated to us. So at that time, we need to further and further purify our morality. This is how actually, in a way, we can see how morality come to the picture. Sense restraint is also a part of morality, but not only that, now you are being a little considerate about how you are living your life. Are you living a very ethical life? Is your life being a kind of a burden to another person, or kind of an obstacle, kind of a harm to another person? So, or you are being a kind of blessing to the others, not only to you. So likewise, now this kind of a self-correction process is now going on. Now all these things are kind of an alignment towards the Dhamma. So in order to maintain Dhamma, we need to have a kind of a pure mind. So that is how we need to understand how we are now changing our life towards type of a meditative life, kind of a spiritual life, not simply driven by sensual desires, not simply driven by our senses or advertisements what we can see from outside. Rather, now we are coming inside, we being more introspective, and we are now trying to align ourselves with the Dhamma. And on the other hand, the Mara tempter is always kind of trying to challenge us. It is not, we can say, we can't actually, the Mara, the tempter is not really an outside force, we can say, rather our own senses. So the senses are sometimes, if not guarded, taking us again and again to the hell, because we sometimes being driven by various sights, various sounds, music, etc., various tastes, and again the various tactile sensations. So likewise, all these external sense data are kind of temptations. Again and again, we are being tempted to satisfy our senses. So if you are not guarding them, so they becomes the real mara. They becomes the real tempter. Actually, when we consider this sense data, so you can't have sensual satisfaction forever. At the beginning, you may feel satisfied, you may feel really enjoyed, but if you are continuing it for a long time, you feel frustrated, you feel bored, and you feel really tired. Say, for example, you are looking at a movie. Assume that it is very interesting, you are being sort of really thrilled, you are being really satisfied, but assume that you are watching it for the second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, then you can't do it even. You start hating it then later, because the same thing, if you are say exposed to again and again, ultimately you get bored, you feel even sort of sleepy, and you feel even fairly tired. So that is the nature of the senses. Therefore we need to understand how conditioned these senses are, how limited the sense satisfaction is. So these different satisfactions or these different gratifications come and go, they are like waves. So the Mara, the tempter, is very much using these in order to keep us in bound to this world, bound to the sensual satisfaction. So we are now a little bit trying to be free from him. I mean, we are being bound to the cell of the Mara, but now we are trying to find out a method to escape from the Mara's realm. So that is something that we need to take it in the way. So in summary, actually, I like to mention is we need to develop mindfulness. The techniques of mindfulness are extremely simple, but doing it very difficult. But we need to encourage ourselves, we need to do it, we need to do it wholeheartedly. We have to maintain it as a kind of a daily practice. And as we are growing, without simply maintaining mindfulness, we need to add clear comprehension into the picture. And again, we have to calm the senses, restrain the senses, then only we can maintain a fairly kind of a progressive path. So with that, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Now I like to open the session. Now I like to start the meditation session. Probably you can sit in a comfortable position. So you can take a seat and maintain a good posture. Relax yourself. You can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, and slowly release. Don't think it as a big thing, a big task, a difficult task. Rather, it's a very simple task. Take it easy. And it's a time to look at yourself, to be with yourself, to explore about yourself. Therefore, it's an encouraging process. Rather than again and again we are being drifted away from ourselves, now again and again we are coming back to ourselves. We are trying to be with ourselves, to accept ourselves, and to explore ourselves. Now you can gently close your eyes. Again, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, and slowly release. Relax yourself. See whether you can recognize these sensations. There's a slight sensation at your eyes, and again a very soft sensation between your lips. And relax yourself and release all the tensions in your face. So don't go to a kind of a tensed kind of a posture or attitude, mood. Rather, release all the tensions. So, overall, your face can't have any tensions, any wrinkles. Rather, you are being in a pleasant mood, acceptive mood. Your head straight, neck straight, shoulders in a relaxed position. And probably you can recognize here and there how your clothes are touching the body. Maybe little tightness, maybe little discomfort. Sometimes it's a kind of a rubbing sensation, touching sensation. See whether you can recognize those places where clothes are touching. And if you move down, probably you can recognize how heart vibration happens, and again rising and falling of the abdomen also happens. So they are very natural processes. You don't need to do anything, you don't need to involve. You simply become a witness. Allow them to happen naturally, and you are simply witnessing the process. And your arms are resting on your lap, and probably you can recognize kind of a pressure at your buttocks. Legs muscles are relaxed, thigh muscles are relaxed, calf muscles are relaxed. And probably your foot may be touching the ground. Again, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, and then release. Now, whether you can see you can come from the bottom, your legs are relaxed, you can recognize certain pressure at your buttocks, and rising and falling of the abdomen. And when you are recognizing rising and falling, if your mind get distracted, you can use mental noting. When you know exactly rising happens, you can mentally note it as rising. When you know exactly falling happens, you can mentally note it as falling. It's a kind of a mental confirmation. There is a physical process going on, physical activity going on, and you are mentally confirming it. Yes, it is rising. Yes, it is falling. So, this mental confirmation actually helps to further and further bring your attention into the process. Again, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, and then release. If you are keeping your attention on rising and falling, do it in a relaxed manner. Allow body to breathe naturally, and you're simply keeping your attention on each rising, each falling. If you are familiar with breathing, you can keep your attention at the nostril, and each in breath you can be mindful. Each out breath you can be mindful. You can select either of them, either rising and falling of the abdomen, or in breath and out breath, which where you recognize at the nostril. Keep it very simple. Don't complicate it. Relax yourself. If your mind get distracted, don't get discouraged. Softly, with a smile, bring it back. Okay, I think we have continued our session, and you all went through guided mindful sitting as well. So, if you like to share your experiences, or if you want to discuss further about what we talked today, and please raise your hand, and then you can join to the conversation. And please feel free to ask any question. So, I encourage this because then actually we can coordinate each other, we can help each other, and again, then it will be an interactive session.
Bante, until someone come with the question, I thought of asking this.
Yeah,
In the clear comprehension, right? So
yeah.
basically, like it's not purely the mindfulness, so you're developing like ultimately the wisdom. So when you go to that extent, basically, um, like seeing things as it is,
Yeah.
and then seeing the impermanence is
Mhm.
basically one of the goals as a practitioner, right?
Yeah.
Like it is developed, it comes through the wisdom, right?
Mhm. So actually, that's why Buddha, when we consider the complete mindfulness path, so Buddha talks about three steps or three stages. The first stage is actually the establishment of mindfulness, what we call as satipatthana. So simply, our minds are getting again and again distracted, again and again deluded. So what we do here is that we are at the beginning we are recognizing whatever present moment activity process, and now we are trying to engage our mind also into that process. So we are establishing mindfulness. So that is actually the first step or first stage.
Mhm.
And when we are successful in that, now we are being trying to incorporate the second part. So that is where the development of the insight. So now we are closely observing. We are now trying to understand the full detail, clearly trying to comprehend the whole picture. That is where the clear comprehension come to the picture, and that actually leads to understand the reality, how they are, how they truly are. So what is really going on right now. So it is, we may be starting it with the body as the bodily phenomena, how what is really going on with the bodily phenomena in the bodily process. So what are the other angles that we can look at our body. So likewise, so we are slowly inculcating wisdom into the picture, and then we are recognizing various feelings and to our various mental states, thoughts, etc., and perceptions, etc. So now it's a more and more introspective process. Now we are more and more going through the wisdom. So that is actually the second stage. The third stage is where you understand the need of a path, kind of a full path, a clear path, so that you can be, you can even maintain this understanding. Because during the second process, time to time you may get insights, but you can't maintain it. You may understand, okay, even though I am successful during meditation, okay, I am again being drifted to something, say something interested, and again I get in deluded. Sometimes again and again mind get subjected to various defilements. How can I further purify myself? What are the necessary conditions? So this is where Buddha coming up in the third part, what we call as the Satipatthana Bhavana Gamini Patipada. So that is the third part. So that is nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. So you now understand, okay, I need the aspect of morality. I need to maintain virtues. So morality is something essential to have a kind of a successful, continuous, sustainable kind of a spiritual life. And the second part is concentration. Actually, the concentration now slowly evolves into the clarity of mind, kind of collectedness of the mind. That is also necessary, because otherwise if the mind is fairly crowded, then you can't actually understand what is really going on. So therefore, the clarity of mind, concentration at the beginning, kind of focused attention, but later evolved into kind of clarity, evolved into say collectedness. So that is also another requirement. And thirdly, you further need to develop wisdom. So still wisdom is not enough. That is why again and again I'm being deluded. So you understand, okay, wisdom also is necessary to further develop. Therefore, the sila samadhi panya becomes the third aspect of satipatthana, and therefore clear comprehension is where we are introducing in at the second stage. So once we are able to establish mindfulness, now we are incorporating clear comprehension into the picture so that it evolves towards the wisdom.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Now I would like to invite Joseph to ask you a question, please.
Thank you, Shalika. Hello, Bhante. I was wondering if you could please just rename the nun, the author, and the books that you mentioned at the very beginning.
So that is actually the sister Ayya Khema. So actually, if you can simply Google and see. So she has written many books. Actually, most of them are very successful and quite popular among the meditators. And one is being fairly recognized, Being Nobody, Going Nowhere. And Who is Myself is, I think, the another book. Being an Island is another book. So those are very, very interesting. I mean, you know, for the Western readers, so she has given a very interesting way of presenting the meditative life, meditation towards them with very beautiful writing. And not only writing, actually, she is being practicing under Matara Sri Jnanarama Mahathero, and she established a nunnery at Parappudua Island, a kind of small island, in Sri Lanka. And she was maintaining that monastery, and then she moved to Australia, conducted retreats, and probably she might have returned to Germany. So likewise, very interesting history is there. And Leigh Bressington is one of her students who is staying in US. Also, I mean, giving a lot of interesting sermons and making a lot of good retreats. These are the points that I like to highlight.
Thank you, Bhante.
Then there is another person raised hand, Sahayuru. You may raise your question.
What does introspection mean?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
What does introspection mean?
Right. So it is looking inside. So you're paying your attention to yourself. So typically our attention being driven outside, because the outside is very interested and is exciting, and our senses are always turning towards outside. Say our eyes are turning outside, our ears are turning outside, nose, tongue, body are all actually taking us to outside, linking us towards the outside. But the mind has the capacity to look inside, not the senses. The mind only has the capacity to look inside. But unfortunately, mind also look outside. So that is how it is being wrongly programmed, in a way, wrongly trained. Again and again thinking about others, again and again thinking about the past, thinking about the future, thinking about this, thinking about that. So basically, very much like tempted towards all the external activities. But now introspection means now you are trying to bring your attention into yourself. So you are turning your mind into yourself. You are trying to recognize what is going on within your body, trying to recognize what are the feelings happening within your body, and what are the feelings happening within your mind, what are the mental states, what are the thoughts, what are the moods, what are the emotions. Now you are exploring yourself. So this whole process we can call as introspection.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, please go ahead, Dilini Jayakodi. You can ask your question.
Avasrai Bhante, can you hear me, please?
Yes, yes.
My question is, I have been doing walking meditation for about an hour in the morning, and sometimes I do it in the afternoon, another hour. What I'm finding is I'm trying to be mindful during the day, like you said, to do brushing teeth and other things. But when I get up in the morning, first thing, I find that my mind is chattering.
Mm-hmm.
And that has bothered me.
Right, right. It's quite natural. I mean, it's a very natural thing to everyone. Say you need to again and again little tame the mind. At the beginning, you need to, I mean, this whole establishment of mindfulness helps you to calm down your chattering mind. So
Right.
at the beginning, it is very difficult because it's a kind of an ongoing process. Even though we are being little mindful, again, the as a background process, the chattering mind is continuing. But later, more you become successful in the mindfulness, the strength you are pumping, strength you are giving to this chattering process become less and less. So
Right.
that's ultimately fades away the chattering mind, and you can have a very quiet mind. Actually, that's a kind of blessing that you can have. Then you can actually enjoy inner silence.
Right.
Yeah. So this inner silence, yeah, this inner silence is not merely dependent on concentration. Actually, the inner silence that you are experiencing mainly dependent on concentration is what we can call as samatha bhavana or tranquility meditation, where you are maintaining a very high concentration and you are avoiding all the different distractions and you are absorbing your attention to a particular very simple process. So the mind become more absorbed to that, stuck in it, locked in it, and you enjoy kind of a silence. But in the vipassana, you are getting more realistic approach where you understand why mind get distracted and what are the distractive objects and what are their disadvantages, what are their danger. So in a way, you are teaching the mind. And later, when mind become more say developed, so mind itself understand, as you are now mentioning, okay, I mean this inner chatter is a burden, inner chatter is not necessary, so it is better to have a silence. So likewise, mind now start inclining towards this inner silence. It finds it very beautiful.
Right.
So now you are further and further using vipassana, you are sort of discarding the inner chatter, you are discarding various unnecessary thoughts and various defilements, and ultimately, time to time, you can enjoy this inner silence.
Right. One thing I found was, Bhante, before I started practicing mindfulness, I didn't even know that the chattering was going on. Yeah. Now that I'm becoming more aware, that's how it started bothering me. And before I woke up in the morning, I didn't know I was chattering. There was so much going on in my head. Now it's like a wheel turning.
Yeah, that's why I was mentioning that mindfulness practice is kind of a monitoring process, and it will tell us, okay, this is not something necessary, this is something necessary, this is you better keep, this you better drop. So likewise, it's a kind of a internal monitoring process. Now you have started, activated. Now it will tell you, okay, now you better reduce this, you better improve this. So likewise, it will give you kind of an insight. Now we are slowly trying to implement that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante, much.
So one way of reducing inner chatter is, say, mindful walking, mindful breathing, and all these things. Because more you pay attention to those little processes, ultimately the energy that you are giving towards the inner chatter become less and less, and you can enjoy some temporary silence. Later, through vipassana, you can directly encounter this inner chatter and you can recognize various thoughts, perceptions, and you can slowly discard them.
Right. Thank you very much, Bante. Much merit to you, Theran Saranai.
Theruwan Saranai.
Thank you again for your time and your commitment for this program. We really, really appreciate it. And so hope to see you all in another month.
Yeah, Theruwan Saranai. Theruwan Saranai.
Everyone,
Saranai.